This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today we're going to talk about, or we're going into more depth, because I definitely have mentioned this recently. I've got it fresh on the mind. I spoke about it on the weekend just gone at the Mood Prep Intensive. This idea of self-sabotage. Now, self-sabotage is definitely something that I remember thinking about within myself, that I'm like, well, I want this goal, but I keep on procrastinating, or when it gets closer to the actual event, I always seem to have something else pop up, and it seems like I'm self-sabotaging something, right? What took me a while to learn, and before I get into what I learned, let me share an example, just so we're on the same page. The easiest example, especially in the fitness industry, is as somebody starts to achieve their goal. Let's say really simply that they want to lose weight. As that person starts to achieve that goal, they get to a point where they just like, well, I don't know, my cravings start to really come up. Work always seems to get really busy around that same time as well, or my hubby ends up having to go away a lot more and I just can't get to the gym. Whatever it is, there's consistent sort of occurrences around the same time every single time, and so I keep on self-sabotaging somehow, and I'm not sure how I'm self-sabotaging. And so you can probably grab that example and use it across the board. Well, you can grab that example and use it across the board with any other industry and probably any other goal. And so the interesting thing and the key thing that we really need to become aware of with the idea of self-sabotaging is that we act in accordance to our frames, which is we act in accordance to our beliefs. And so the thing about it is that often, to achieve our conscious goal, we're actually going to sabotage our self-conscious, our unconscious self-belief or frame. Right, so if you think about it as in the highest frame, so the frame that is basically above and about something. So an example is, I'll use one I used on the weekend. I get nervous about a presentation at work. Okay, and what is it you think about that? It's like, well, I think that's stupid. I feel stupid. It's like, okay, and what do you think and feel about that? It's like, well, I feel ashamed. And it's like, okay, so you feel ashamed about thinking and feeling stupid about being nervous about a presentation at work. And so what do you think or feel about that? It's like, well, I think it's weak to be shame, like to feel shame. So I hate myself. It's like, okay, and why do you hate yourself? It's like, because I'm not good enough. It's like, right. Okay, and is there anything above about that, right? And the conversation could potentially continue, but let's cut it there. It's like, they're not good enough. They run a frame that they're not good enough, and that's why they're getting nervous. And it's like, can you hear once again how global the frame, I'm not good enough, it's like, at what specifically, in what context? And all of a sudden we start to see this frame dissipate, but, to stick with the frame, it's a very global thing. So once again, simply the nervousness that I end up shaming away about me not being good enough. It's like, where else is that showing up in your life? You see, we're not self-sabotaging our goals. Often to achieve our goal, we're self-sabotaging our belief structure. And so if we're going to sabotage the belief structure, our ego doesn't like that, hey, and it's going to fucking do what it can to make sure you act in accordance to your beliefs. Another way to think about it is the highest frame runs the game. And so whatever that is, unless you don't want to change it, and I've met some people that don't, and I'm sure I have some that I don't want to. In fact, of course I have some that I don't want to. It's like, the structures there associated with either with my dog or with sport or whatever it may be that I'm fully aware of, and I'm like, no, I'm happy to choose that. I enjoy that frame. And so the key thing here is to shift away from this self-sabotaging idea, and a lot of the time people almost push it into this third-person perspective, which is actually easier not to own. So let me explain that. Some people will be like, it just keeps on happening. No, it doesn't. It doesn't keep on happening. You keep on doing it. So why are you doing it? It's because it's not me. Now I'm not owning it because it is out there, right? As opposed to, what am I doing and what meaning am I making of this stuff? Whatever this stuff is. So this is the key thing. Like, it can really shift the way that we view our whole world to realize that we don't fucking self-sabotage our goals. It's actually going back into the wiring and starting to recognize what's actually going on. So this is often the subjective space. You can't point at these frames unless they're written down on a whiteboard, but they're coming from a subjective space, which is the thinking, feeling space. And it's interesting because this is how deep we can go with and we can go deeper with semantics, but this idea of going, well, here's a thought and here's a feeling that I have about this thought, but that same frame, somebody else might have a different feeling associated with it and a different meaning. And this is why we all have different subjective experiences about situations and how we can be right and incomplete, because we have such a different viewpoint than maybe the next person to us, even though we saw the same thing. Because the key message here, ready? The key message, it's not what you look at, it's what you see. And you decide what you see. Now, your wiring, your conditioning, your narcissistic wounding from a child, but basically it's like narcissistic wounding. So I was hurt as a child, I was told to shut up, or that I wasn't good enough, or whatever it may be. That's my wounding, and it was about me, and I'm still holding on to that. Can you see the narcissism in it? And I'm bringing it to my conversation today, I'm bringing it to my meeting, I'm bringing it to my relationship. It's narcissistic wounding, and what I'm doing is simply allowing these frames that occurred from such a young age, more often than not, sometimes in teens. I'm bringing them to the every single day, and I'm letting them run it without even realizing. And also, that's fine. It is completely, everyone does it. It's a normal thing. It's just going that there's a chance if you're listening to this podcast, you may want to learn more about this. You want to extend yourself further and understand yourself further, right? Because when we move into that space and really start owning all of us, all of our thoughts, all of our feelings, the four areas of our personal power, if you want to call it that, the power of influence, or whatever it may be, you want to call it, whatever, four powers, which is speech, behavior, thoughts, and emotions. When we can be in that space and own that space, then all of a sudden we move into this healthy level of responsibility, and we actually can start moving towards our goals, towards the things that are truly important to us, rather than discounting ourselves or discounting the goal itself or anything, associated with that. We can start to really go in there and change the frames and try different frames on, move into different perspectives to be able to change our whole fucking life. Excuse me. We have that power. It's there, and it's always there. We just have to stop trying to be right all the time. Because the more that we're right, the more we hold on to that, the less we're going to see. You move into a space of right and incomplete, you see the process, you see the whole length of the story, before you were born, after you die, that length of that story. You see the process, and you start to realize that you're a part of that process, and you are unfolding. You're not a static thing. The shit that happened to you when you were younger was static, and you're still carrying it potentially. How to identify it? It takes time, and it takes work, and you can change that. That's in your power. You just got to be brave enough to turn to it. It's in your shadow, right? It's in the parts of your personality you don't like to look at. It's the parts of the personality we shun, we push away. That's why it's called a shadow. On that note, I'm going to leave you there with all that fun. If you have any questions about this team, I'd love you to jump into the Facebook group, Mood Prep Online, and share them in there. I'd love to hear them, and more than happy to help answer them where I can. Otherwise, that's it for me. I'm going to sign off straight away. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick. Slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.